What is up guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be doing some test hands here for my recent magical musketeer deck that I recently profiled. Now don't get this confused with the first iteration of the deck. The first build I actually did, which also had some test hands to it, definitely showcased a very different variation of this particular deck and showcased the different interactions that the deck could actually do. However, in this particular variation, I did change it quite significantly to the point where it actually does do different things. So this particular test hand video will be very different from the previous test hand videos that I actually made for the previous build, because this one is for the newer build and it would be significantly better in this particular case. It's supposedly supposed to be more consistent, and I'm hoping to prove that in this particular test hand video. But before we get started, I would like to remind you guys to drop a like, share, comment and subscribe if you end up enjoying this video, and also hit that bell notification as well. It really does help. According to my analytics, 60% of you aren't even subscribed, so please do. It really does help me continue producing quality content. But with that being said, let's begin. Alright, so here's our opening test hand. Thank goodness we drew into a Ties of the Brethren. It's a card that I actually wanted to demonstrate here, and that's definitely fantastic. Now, I do have over here a Starfire and the Wild, which both happen to be the same targets. So I'm hoping I'm able to actually summon it. Let's see here. I mean, it is quite unfortunate, but I think what I can do is I could still definitely summon out Wild and pull this off. So I'll summon out Wild, I'll activate Ties of the Brethren, and this will allow us to actually go for our two monsters, which are our only two targets. It's better for the level 3s, of course. We have Starfire, and we also have Calamity as well, so we just look for it. So there we go. As you guys can see, that's very powerful right off the bat, because that's just 3 monsters onto the field immediately. Very powerful indeed. Now, what I could potentially do in this particular circumstance is I could just pretty much set down the Crackdown, or in this case it's meant to be Impermanence. Set it in whichever field you actually feel is necessary. So I'm going to set it down right beside the Starfire, and that way when this activates at least, the Starfire will trigger off, allowing you to special summon out something else from the deck. In that case, you could potentially go for Caspar and follow up with the Steady Hands to trigger off a Caspar, adding you more cards and just continuing from there. But you do have the Wild and Calamity as well. You could definitely still pull off a lot of things. For example, you could just link this away, allowing you to go for your max and then keep this in the graveyard. Calamity could then summon this out when she triggers off if you activate one of your spells or traps right on the same column as her. So it's definitely really powerful, because instead of having just one monster, you're now having 2 additional monsters as well to work with in this particular circumstance to respond to your opponent. Alright, so again, very nice that we drew into the Ties of the Brethren. I really do encourage you guys actually play 3 copies of it to maximize consistency, but in this particular case we could go for the same thing. We have Wild, so we could go for Calamity and Starfire, or in this particular case we have a Dock, so you could actually activate Dock and then you could activate Ties of the Brethren, allowing you to then trigger off certain things again. So in this particular case, perhaps you could go for Caspar and Kid Brave. So this changes up everything. Definitely very nice here. So let me just put them out over there. And from that, I mean, you have this here looking really good. You have Desperado, you have your Dancing Needle. So whichever card you want to activate in response to any of these would definitely still work out as well. You have the Wild in the hand, so Kid Brave is active. Dock could be active after you activated any of these cards, and Caspar of course is definitely going to benefit by adding you more cards like Steady Hands or Cross Domination to respond against your opponent. But what you have here is definitely very fantastic, and it could definitely just get you going for a lot of different responses. And like I said in the previous test hand just then, the Ties of the Brethren allows us to gain 2 more cards out on the board. So this means 2 potential responses as well to your opponent, better managing your resources. And this is kind of the one thing I wanted to emphasize with this particular build as opposed to the previous build. The first build I actually had with this particular deck was me pretty much experimenting and trying out the deck for the first time, I guess, on the channel. And it was kind of hard to, well, the deck itself already did really well when it came to managing resources, and that wasn't even with using Ties of the Brethren. But the fact that we have Ties of the Brethren now just gives us so much more to work with in this particular case, and I definitely like what we have over here because we could definitely have so much more responses. With the 2 additional Musketeers on the board, you're potentially generating 2 additional responses as well, or 2 additional resources from the deck. And yeah, it's just a really huge significant impact, and to pull this off on the first turn just makes things even more amazing. And this particular deck is kind of like a first turn deck anyway. You're playing your monsters out, you sit and you essentially just wait for what your opponent might potentially have, and that way your deck will interact the way it is. Alright, so here's something that's definitely very different. Not the most optimal hand, obviously, because we have Pot of Desires, but we're going to go for the Casper right here, and we're just going to activate our Pot of Desires. You can activate the Instant Fusion, bringing out your Millennium Eyes. So if your opponent wants to negate your Pot of Desires, you always have Millennium Eyes to stop the Ash, which is definitely fantastic because later on we just take the Instant Fusion and use the whatever target we brought out to just link that away as part of fodder. So we just go for the Pot of Desires, and we're gonna banish off 10 cards here, over here, and we're gonna draw 2 more cards, and let's see what we get. We managed to draw into Ties, nice, and Dock as well. Alright, great draws. Let's see what we banished off. So we got rid of Last Stand, okay. Oh, both our Last Stands, that's definitely unfortunate. Cross Domination, Ash, Reborn, Crackdown, another Ash, Charge, and another Crackdown. Not the worst, but losing 2 Last Stands is definitely unfortunate. So we'll set that aside, but we do have this. Casper will actually activate, allowing you to then search for whatever you actually need in this particular case. And I'm thinking the best card we could actually go for in this particular circumstance, we don't have Desperado, so we'll go for Desperado. Great way to respond to the opponent, but even so, we can now definitely just go for the Ties, allowing us to then go for more monsters on the board. So let's go for Kid Brave, and let's also bring out our Dock as well. Definitely very fantastic in this circumstance, because we could definitely just continue with our plays from there. We do have over here the Cross Domination, we have Desperado, both cards very active. Desires could be used next turn still, which is fantastic. We have a Dock to discard for Kid Brave's effect, and of course this Dock can then just add back this Dock from the graveyard as well. Definitely fantastic there. And of course we have Instant Fusion too. So quite a few different disruptions, quite a few different resources to actually potentially gain from. What I like here is obviously Casper. If you respond during your opponent's turn, you add more spells and traps, either Steady Hands or another Cross Domination, or whatever is appropriate. Kid Brave, draw more cards, get more resources. Dock returns back your resources anyway. It's all just really fantastic, allowing you to work with plenty of different cards here. Alright, so here's the final test hand. This is definitely a bit more on the lackluster side of things, but that's okay because we could definitely still work with what we actually have here. For example, we still have here the Kid Brave, which we could actually just trip it off, allowing us to then bring out our Yugioh, which is fantastic of course. We could still activate the Crooked Crown. This will allow us to then special summon out one monster from our hand. So in this particular case, perhaps we'll go for a Starfire. And yeah, from that, it's just all good of course, because even though you can't really do anything after this, actually this stays out on the field, so that's definitely fantastic. But the thing is this, during the end phase, Yugioh will allow you to then add something as well. So in this case, you could either go for your cross domination, or you go for steady hands or last stand, or whatever you think is appropriate. And if you respond with the Starfire, of course, this will then allow you to then, I guess, continue off with different things, which is definitely fantastic of course. But yeah, this is a bit more of the lackluster side of things here compared to the previous three, which definitely gave us better management for resources. But you know, sometimes you're not going to draw into your Ties of the Brethren, though with 3 copies of it and with plenty of cards to just search out and draw you more cards like Kid Brave and Pot of Desires, you could definitely benefit so much off this deck to get into your Ties of the Brethren to get you started. And what you essentially want to start off with majority of the time is the 3 Musketeer monsters on the board, allowing you to just have so many races on the board at the ready, and that's just something that is quite rewarding for this particular deck. However, I hope this video actually better demonstrates the consistency of this particular deck. That's kind of the whole purpose behind it. I will showcase a few different hands again in the turns going second, that way I could further prove how consistent this deck is, but also find a way to work around taking on this deck actually going second in this particular case, which would be quite different indeed. But with that being said, I hope you guys have a great day. I'll see you all next time.